Hello, everyone, and welcome to Making the Shift. I have a very exciting guest with us today. I'm so excited to introduce you guys to Sandy. And Sandy is a mom who actually enrolled in the Inside Out program online, and that's where I met her. And then she called me, and now she brings her son in for therapy. And I'm just so excited for you to be here because I feel like so many families can relate to your journey and just how much you've been through and how many challenges you've been through. And now for you to get to this place where you feel the pieces are coming together. And I was thinking about this and I was like, it's kind of funny because I don't think any parent ever gets to the place where they're just like, everything's magical and perfect. It's like there's always a next piece of what's coming. And I really just wanted Sandy to come because it's so inspiring to see and hear her story. And I'm also kind of nervous because I feel like you always tell me things that are happy things, but are like happy tears.
Yeah.
And I'm like really scared I'm going to cry.
Tears. We can pause.
But I would love for, actually, let me share one story first.
Okay, sure.
Okay, this is like one of my big memories. It was like one of the first times you came here. And your son had brought in his big stuffies, which he brought today too.
Yeah, they go everywhere.
And they come into the waiting room and I'm just like randomly in the waiting room. I don't know why. And his therapist comes out and then he just like walks back with her and doesn't even like look at you. Just literally like doesn't grab his stuffed animals, just like goes
totally
straight
caught
in.
Me in that moment. It was the first time he had abandoned both his like safety plushies and me. And just like beelined to the therapy room.
And I just like looked at you and
you started crying.
Yeah, you started crying. And then I was crying. I was like, oh my gosh, because it was just like a big moment.
Yeah. Well, when he's excited to go someplace, obviously he's a very different kid. So,
yeah.
And that was when I kind of came to the realization that that's how it could be all the time if I had the right pieces in place. And we're still trying to make every aspect of his life reflect that feeling. He doesn't always feel that excited to get in the car. We're still struggling with the school situation. That's probably like a whole other podcast. Yeah.
Well, I would love you to share kind of like where you guys were and where you started. Maybe scooch up like just a tad. Okay. I just want to make sure the microphone gets you.
Okay. Well, so I kind of want to go back a little ways and share about how I first started noticing that like the back and forth language wasn't the same as maybe other parents that had kids around the same age. They were starting to potty train and we didn't have the language to discuss needing to go or let's go sit on the potty or anything. And so I talked to my pediatrician when he was 3 and said, should we have a language assessment? And she said, no, it's, he's talking enough. Like he's probably let's just wait and see. And I think a lot of people get that advice. And I really wish that we had been able to start, whether or not he would get an autistic diagnosis in the end, which he did. But it would have been great to have the support and someone to help me support him at home. So we got to the 4-year well check and we still hadn't really gotten, too much more progress. There was still a lot of scripting. What I know now is echolalia and, Gestalt processing stage 1. And so we did, I asked for another assessment. And at that point, we had to wait a really long time to get one. And then I got interviewed by the developmental pediatrician's nurse or nurse practitioner. And they said, oh, okay, well, we'll make you an appointment to see the psychologist in, 7 months or something. And I was like, wait, I'm going to have to wait until then to get services. I need something. So I kind of like started banging on pots and pans and calling and being irritating, which I find is now like my life. I am an advocate. I'm an advocate. I make phone calls. I write emails all the time. And in this case, it was just the beginning. So we got Logan his first speech assessment and his OT assessment before we ever got to see the developmental pediatrician or the child psychologist. And they said, oh yeah, he could really benefit from speech twice a week and OT once. And we started those services before we got the autism diagnosis. And so we went into very standard speech therapy where they assume, standard language acquisition and the goals were, you know, who, what, when, where sorts of questions. And I think everybody knows that, like, I want this, I need that, you know, and with his gestalt processing, it just wasn't really helping. There were no sensory breaks. And I started noticing, I don't remember exactly when I found your account, but I self-diagnosed him because I found Sensory SLP online. I think the other two accounts that really supported me at the time, and people responded, Autism Dad and Amazing Autistic Abby. Those were the other two that both of them have written back to me, given support, and then, like, I think their accounts led me to you. And then when I started watching your videos, I was like, oh my God, this is us. This is my son. And then I shortly thereafter enrolled in the Inside Out course, and I was trying to get his therapist, his speech therapist, to integrate some of these sensory strategies that I felt like would help him be in the optimal learning zone. And I kept getting pushback. And instead of like, oh yeah, let's do that, I think he might be a Gestalt processor. Can we talk about different goals? It was like, no, you don't know what you're talking about. You're the problem, really. He would be better if he was alone in the room with us. And I'm like, well, they're the experts. So we tried that for a while, but Logan was upset when I left. I hated that I wasn't learning from them. You know, I really wanted to be right down on the floor, learning what the therapist was doing, which I know you had talked about. Like, that's my favorite kind of parent, the one who gets in there. So it felt wrong. And then as the weeks and months went by, you know, he was making little gains, but nothing super significant. And then around, I think it was the beginning of this year in January, I had just had it. I was like, just do your final assessment, whatever it takes. I literally had to drag Logan in there kicking and screaming several days in a row to finish the thing. It took 3 sessions to get through the assessment because he hated it so much. And I think he's bored by the testing material, and you know, you have to do it this specific way. And we weren't taking sensory breaks, and we weren't using, you know, fidgets or like the opportunity to move around and get his body wiggles out. They were just trying to get him to sit at a table and do it, and it was a disaster. So we got through it. I think it probably basically showed that he could hardly talk at all, which is not accurate. And I got another recommendation to come to speech 2 times a week for a year. It took forever to get it, but you got us started right away. I was so blown away when I booked the patient consult with her. We had our 15-minute call. And I was so nervous. Like, I've been looking at you on the screen for months, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm meeting this celebrity. And you just came on, were so nice and so welcoming. And I think you listened for maybe 3 minutes, just the rundown, and you pegged us instantly. You knew we needed to be supported. Maybe you knew in that moment already that he was a Gestalt processor, but it was like, you said, I think I have the perfect therapist for you. And you were so right. Claire is the best. She's also the younger sister of an autistic older brother, which is our situation. We have a neurotypical daughter who's 3, and Logan is autistic 5-year-old. And it fit like a glove. You got us in, was it 2 days later? We came in and met you. And I felt like I'd been scooped up by, like, you know, golden stars and rainbows. We came, I mean, it seems like I'm exaggerating, but it was such a change. Also, there's an elevator on the way into your office, which is a tremendous motivator for my little boy. I don't know about everyone else, but he loves the buttons. And now, you know, even today, he popped right out of the car, put down his video game. He's like, we're going to the Playhouse, which I know is part of why you named it what you named it. And you know, we ran in here, and he just, again, left me in the dust with his plushies in the waiting room, but I'm used to that now. So
I know. I remember you sent us a video a few weeks ago where he was just like packing up, and you're like, where are you going? He's like, I'm going to see Claire. And you're like, it's
like 4 hours early. He's like, yep, we're going to the Playhouse, Mama, right now. Let's go. So it is very different to see the boy who hated going to speech and never wanted to go and fought me at every transition. And now it's so different here. I was welcomed into the room. I was validated immediately. Oh yeah, he's a Gestalt processor. And you guys talked to me like I knew something. You said, oh, what stage do you think he is? And I'm like, well, he does 1, 2, 3, and 4. So I don't know. Please help me. and they took language samples. They took his sensory profile into consideration. I feel like this is basically just like recommendation for Jessie's practice, but also for like any other followers of yours that question going, whole hog and drinking the neurodivergent affirming Kool-Aid. Like it totally works, because we've gone from, Logan was mostly stage 2 when we started, where he was combining 2 chunks of gestalts together. And then his flexible single word vocabulary was, I think quite impressive despite his lack of proper support. So we moved right into stage 3 really fast, where he was plugging in single words, modifiers, colors, and different nouns. And then now Claire just redid his language samples last week, and he's more than 30% of his statements are, his own compositions. I'm hearing grammatical errors. Like my favorites are, there's so much beautiful.
Yeah, for anyone who's not familiar, that's a really good sign that the language is progressing when we start to hear these grammatical
mistakes.
errors.
Yeah, he's making mistakes pluralizing nouns. I'm having trouble in the moment thinking of great examples, but there's so much beautiful is my favorite one. When he sees something he's excited about, that's one of his new favorite things to say.
Gosh, I have so many questions.
Okay, so ask away. That's our
but
story.
I'm struggling to decide what to start with, because I'm some of them I don't know if they're answers truly, but I guess like, what would you say to families who are kind of like stuck in that initial stage of where you were? Because like, people are probably sitting here going, well, that's great, you could drive to Jessie's clinic, which by the way, it is not an easy drive for you.
No, it's not. But I remember you were like, you're 7 miles away. Oh, we're getting you in here. Like you're like, I usually can't help people, they're far away. And I know you are the type of person, you just want to help everyone. She's such a golden
But you
human.
drive like an hour. It still is pretty fun.
Yeah, it's the traffic can be bad. Like
Yeah.
we left at 10 o'clock today because I wanted to be early for this interview. And then the traffic was bad, and I was sitting in one place for like 20 minutes, and it's tough, but it's worth it, because Logan is growing and talking more. In the last 3 or 4 months, we have made more progress with y'all than we made in almost a year.
He's doing amazing. I love to like creep in his notes and just look too.
Yeah. Oh, well, and Claire is doing such a great job.
Yes.
So they have a lot of the same special interests. Mario and vehicles. Or at least she's a good sport about pretending that she loves it as much as he does.
No, she's definitely into Mario.
So anyway, ask away, Al.
So
an open book.
I guess a big question is like, what would you say to parents who are like in that initial stage where they're like, this doesn't feel right, I need more support? Like,
I think my number one piece of advice is trust your mama or papa spidey sense. And if it feels wrong to you, then it is. Because I felt like, I mean, I know we're not really talking about OT here, but the occupational therapist at one session said, well, they need to desensitize. So it's okay if he's screaming and crying during a whole session. And I thought, really? And we had 1 or 2 sessions like that. And I finally put a stop to it. I was sitting right outside. That's the other thing. They didn't like that I hovered around the door right outside. And I feel like you guys would never chase me away. If a parent is concerned and feeling like it's not right, then maybe it's not right for you. And that's okay. For me, I really needed to make sure that Logan was regulated. And the more I heard from you about, and it just made sense, the brain science behind it makes sense, that no human being, whether they're on the spectrum or off, learns well when they're dysregulated. So my advice is follow your child's regulation, and I think let their special interests guide you, because a lot of Logan's speech sessions look like talking about Mario characters and talking about what the vehicles are doing and where they're going. But because it's his special interest, we are building language that then when he's somewhere else and he doesn't have any special interest with him, he's commenting on stuff and using the same words. So trust yourself.
Yeah. And I always say that to therapists too. If it doesn't feel like the right approach, it's probably not. And I think what's great and something we don't think about, we often think about parents looking for the right fit for therapists, but less often do we talk about therapists looking for the right fit of families, because
Oh, sure.
I will say like that our combination is such a fit, because like we're looking for the parents like
Well,
you
I was
who
suffering, right?
are like wanting to learn, and like you guys can hear, like just to hear you talk about him and the amount you know, I'm sure parents are like, oh my God, how is she not a therapist because of the amount that you've actually learned, you know?
Yeah, I've learned a lot from you. I feel silly because we are going through, this is again, I feel like if you ever wanted to talk again about the IEP process and getting an advocate and learning about disability law and hiring an attorney and what you need to do to advocate for your child to get the kind of supports that they need going into kindergarten or any level of school. But I'm totally mired in that right now. So my brain goes to that. But I had to explain Gestalt language processing to the IEP team. And thanks to you and thanks to Chris, Speech Dude. I also took his IEP parent course. 100% recommend that. It's been really helpful. We're using it to write Logan's goals, and we're going to have to go to the alternative dispute resolution process because we didn't get a chance to really write good goals. So I feel like I'm getting off topic.
No, I feel like that's all very,
it's all tied
those are all very
together.
real issues that you have to, it's like we always on our team, we talk about how once you solve one problem, it's just on to the next problem. And it's a good thing, because the fact that you have another problem is a sign that you were able to move forward, you know?
Yeah.
So like a few years ago, our problem was that no one knew what neurodiversity affirming practices was.
Right.
And now people are starting to learn about it, which is amazing. But now we have a new problem, which is now that we know what it is, how can we like change more of our structures and systems to support that, you know, neurodiversity paradigm and doing what feels right and honoring kids for who they are. And it's like, that's the next.
Yeah. And
problem.
if you like zoom down and like with a microscope on your tiny little problems, the same thing, like Logan's developing language. So now he can tell me what, you know, I don't want this. I don't want that. No, mama, no. I don't want to be here. I want to leave. And there's just all this language coming, which is great, but it's not always what I want to hear. So that's the next problem, you know, is like, I would also, I just want parents to know when the language centers start hooking up in the brain. I'm sure there's more brain science about this that I could learn. Logan started talking in his sleep shortly after we started with you guys. And then I think it's related. He also started dreaming, and he started having bad dreams, waking up terrified. It wasn't every night. We had really 3 bad nights in a row. And then it just went away. It's like, do you know you're sleep training your little baby and they start babbling and you feel like you've got it all, their routine is down, and then they learn a new skill and then the sleep gets messed up.
Yes, all the
so I feel like we're learning language development milestones are happening that were supposed to happen in a standard language processor at like 2 or 3. And now I'm seeing behaviors or, you know, sleep regressions that I hear about in younger toddlers, but they're happening to Logan now because I think the neurological hookups are somehow related to these other
a lot of cognitive
issues.
growth.
I don't know who could advise me on that. Maybe someone knows more about it.
Yeah, we need to look into this.
But it's definitely like disrupted his other routines because now he can talk.
Yeah.
And I also do want to say he's potty trained now.
Yes.
And it happened when we got the language support. We can talk about going to the potty. He was in the car on the way here and he said, Mama, I need a toilet. Mama, I need a toilet.
Oh, that's amazing.
So, I mean, I know for the parents out there who are like still doing pull-ups, 3, 4, 5, I was there. And then in 2 weeks, I'm all done with diapers, Mama. He said that sentence to me.
Oh my gosh.
And he's like, I want my underwear. So, I mean, it comes and you just have to be patient. And so much modeling of the language, the first person modeling and the joint language modeling. Like, yeah.
I know. I'm just
Thank you for teaching me.
I'm sitting here thinking like, how I just love listening to the whole story, but just thinking of like, how can parents do more of what you're doing? And I know like for a lot of parents, they're kind of stuck in a place of feeling really overwhelmed. And maybe they're like, well, I don't have the capacity to like do all of that learning and studying and,
Yeah.
because it's a lot.
Yeah. Well,
But it's also like, I'm obviously worth it for you.
yeah.
Right. But
Yeah.
like,
Well,
do
I
you
mean, it
think
made
that,
my life easier to do it.
yeah,
If that's motivation. And I really was just doing it in the cracks, watching a little video of yours here and there to, dipping into Inside Out. I'm still not done. Like I just tap in whenever I can. I did most of Chris's Speech Dude IEP course just while driving or folding laundry or holding a sleeping child or trying to get them to go to sleep and just trying to take in the information.
yeah. So I think that's really great because for parents to hear that like it can be done, and like you said, in the cracks, just in the little
and
bits
I'm a
of
freelancer.
time. And
I'm a professional musician. I gig and I play all over town, and I'm trying to be a mom. I'm trying,
you are a mom, first of all.
Yes, I am a mom. I'm trying to be a better mom.
Aren't we all?
I'm trying to do all the right things, but yeah, there's.
And I think you
no
brought
time.
up a good point, which is it's one of those things where maybe like it feels like a lot, but just taking baby steps, it can get done, and then it makes things easier.
Yeah,
in the long run.
Nobody think that I'm like sitting down to study, an hour or two a day, and that I have quiet to do so. It is really just like in the middle of everything.
Yeah.
But now that I have you guys to distill the information, like I'm getting stuff that's only relevant to Logan. So if you can find a speech practice that knows what a GLP is and can help you target your efforts, like that's why it's going so much better now.
Because I always say like any online course or program is never a replacement of therapy.
No.
It's an amazing addition to, and it's just so awesome to see you coming in and us being able to integrate everything, because that's how our online course is designed, is like for you to be able to take what you learn and then chat about it with a therapist and see it in real life. And of course that's about finding the right therapist, but I feel like some things I've seen you do, and just kind of like recapping some of the things we've talked about, developing that it's almost like an identity you're taking on of your child's advocate. It's like you becoming that person and believing you can be that person, but also you kind of finding your people. And I know that for a lot of families seeking neurodiversity affirming services, they feel like it's very disjointed a lot of the time. Like, oh, I have this random person and I have this random person. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But like, you're starting to bring it together. Like you worked with an advocate, was another inside out therapist.
I know people have really mixed feelings about ABA, but Logan does 15 hours a week of ABA. And I will be honest that when we started, the case manager assigned to us was not neurodivergent affirming. And the programs that she was writing for Logan, a lot of them I was like, nope, we're not doing that. We're not doing this. We're not doing that. And I think I annoyed her enough. She quit my case. She said, and it said in the note, the mother is a barrier to my success. And I was like, no, I am a barrier to you causing trauma to my kid, because we're not getting rid of stims. I'm not interested in the compliance. I want to work on self-advocacy. But my very young one-to-one ABA therapist, who is lovely, I won't mention names because I'm trying to be the privacy thing. But he took my feedback, and he's done a lot of
and he's videoed.
Yep. He's come and observed here, and he wants to come again now that we're dipping into new stages of language. But has taken all of my feedback. Like I teach him about what we're doing here, and he's integrating it into every session. And so Logan is getting it again from another therapist. And our new case manager is lovely, and she's learning from us. And when I show her the fascinating things that we're doing with Logan, with you guys, she's impressed. And she's like, oh my gosh, we have to add this to the practice. Like, if you find the right people, they will want your input.
Yeah.
So again, trust your gut, keep looking.
Yeah.
Don't give up. It's
just going to say, it all comes down to what feels right, and only you as a parent can make that decision.
Yeah. And I think if your kid is excited, like when our therapist walks into the house, he will drop anything that he's doing and run and jump into his arms because he's so excited to play. And that's, he's starting to write. He's starting to do more appropriate classroom work for his age, because it's the right therapy, and we're following the special interests and the regulation and the connection and all the stuff that you guys talk about. It really is, I think it's the only way. It's the best way.
Oh, well, thank you so much for being here. Is there anything else you feel like, and not to put you on the spot, in case there's anything where you're like, I really wanted to share that?
I'm sure I'll think of something later driving home. But yeah, I mean, I think it would be great. Maybe this is like a future goal, to have some sort of resource we could give to parents in your community. Like if we could all chime in, comment, email Jessie or Chris, or however you come to this making the shift. But where do you know of a therapist who is neurodivergent affirming, and can we make a big list?
So that we're working on it.
So, you guys are already doing it, because
Chris has something very cool he's working on.
All right. Well, I don't want to steal his thunder then, but I mean, that would have been wonderful.
But it's very, very needed.
Because I feel like the me a year ago, you said something about me finding my voice and finding my strength to be the advocate. It was very herky jerky, and I wish someone would have said, okay, so you have an autistic son. That's great. Here's everything you need to know about where to go to find the right support. I would have just loved to have somebody grab my hand and put their arm around me and say, it's going to be okay. Yeah. Here's where to start. Yeah. But I had nothing. I had nothing like that. It was very unfortunate, and I made mistakes, and I learned from them at every turn. And I think I would just want to leave every parent with the statement of you can't be angry at yourself for what you didn't know yet. And as long as you keep trying to learn, we'll all get there in the end.
Yeah. Oh, that was beautiful. That's so much beautiful.
There's so much beautiful, y'all. Okay.
Well, thank you for being here and being such a great family for us in our clinic and supporter. And I know even before I released my book, you went in and snatched.
I pre-ordered that.
It went live sooner than we were expecting. And then I get like a message from Sandy. She's like, got my book. I'm like, you're like literally the first person. Which is a great resource if you are with therapists and you feel like you want to help to teach them, that book could help them out too.
Yeah, I feel like I'm out spreading the good word. So you guys do it too, and buy Jessie's book.
Well, thank you so much for being here. I hope you guys enjoyed this, and we'll see what kind of questions come up, and maybe we'll be able to answer some as they do.
Bye.
All right. Bye.